Hi, and welcome to Learning How to Analyze Data Using Python Pandas. My name is Scott Bartow, and this class is offered to you by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. For those of you who have downloaded Python onto your machine, with the Python download, you get the Python shell. You also get the text editor, Python idle. And you also get like an installer called PIP. And the way to install Python Pandas, the Panda library, is to go to your command prompt on your machine, which you can see on my machine screen. I have the command prompt up, and it's got my hard drive, the C : /users / and then my username, which is sbart, and then a greater than sign. And at this point, this is where you would do the install for the Pandas library for Python. And all you would have to do is type in the command pip space install space pandas. And if I hit enter, it would do the install. I already have the Panda library installed on my machine. So this is how you would install this Pandas library and have it available to you to use on your own machine. All right, so I'm going to close this out, and then let's go to my idle session, and I'll get my Python shell up here. All right. Okay, so we should be good to go. All right. So let's talk about Python Pandas. All right. So Pandas is a Python library, and it's used to analyze data. All right. The library has functions for analyzing, cleaning, exploring, and manipulating data. The name Pandas is referenced by these two things, by both panel data and also Python data analysis, and that's how they got the name for the library of Pandas. And why do we want to use Pandas? Well, Pandas allow us to analyze large amounts of data and to draw conclusions on that data and correlations and trends. And Python also Pandas are also used to clean the data that is missing information, or it's just organized not in the way that you want it, making it unreadable or not relevant to what you're trying to do analysis on. That's there's a whole bunch of things you can do with the Pandas library. You can look for correlations between two data sets. You can find the averages, the masses, the mins. There's a whole host of things Pandas allow you to do analysis of data. All right, so one way to know if you have the Pandas library installed correctly on your machine is to go out into an idle session, which is right here. And type in the word import, because we want to bring in the library into our our Python session. So import space and then pandas, and hit enter. And if you look over to the right of my screen, or not hit enter, I'm sorry, go up to the toolbar, click on run, and then run module. And then we want to save this program. I've already saved it as a .py extension file. And if you look to the right, you can see the Python shell is running my program, and it returns the 3 greater than signs, which indicate that you're back at the Python shell prompt, which means that I have successfully imported pandas into my library. So I know that I've installed the pandas library correctly on my machine, and because I'm able to import the library into my program. So let's do an example. All right, so I have import pandas, and then I'm going to create a variable called my data set equals, and then I will put a curly bracket here, hit enter a few times, and then underneath I'll do a closing curly bracket. All right, and then indented under the variable named my data set, I'm going to create cars, colon, space, and then I'll do a square bracket, and then I'm going to do a few cars in here. Stay consistent. I'll do a single quote, and I'll do I'll do a BMW, single quote, comma. I'll do a Volvo, comma, and I will do Ford. Quote, and close out the bracket, comma, hit enter, and now I'm going to do passing. Oops. Passing, quote, colon, space, square bracket, and sorry, go to passings, and I'll do 3, comma, 7, comma, 2. These are numbers, so they don't have to be surrounded by quotes. And then I'll do square bracket, and that'll be it. I don't need a comma because I only have two lists. All right, so enter. All right. So now I've created a data set called my data set, and which has 2 arrays in it. And now I'll create a variable named myVar, or variable, space equals, and I'll call the pandas library dot, and then I'll say data frame. And you see IntelliSense is bringing up in the, if you're using the idle text editor, IntelliSense, when I type in after the dot for the pandas library, it brings up all these different methods within the library. So data frame is the one we want. So I can just double click on data frame. Oops. Data frame. We go back. Pandas dot. Data frame's down here. Let's not let me click it. Data frame. And what I want is my data set the variable in my data set, and enter. And it's going to take, it's called the Pandas library data frame method, and I'm passing in as the argument. I'm passing in the value of my data set, which has chars and passings. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a Python print. And then in parentheses, I'm going to print out this variable, the value of this variable, myvar. And that's it. All right, so I'm going to do a run module. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cancel that. First I'm going to save as. And I will go up to the folder I want it in. And folder here. Enter, and then I'll double click, and then this will be my file. So this is just a what should we call it? I'll just call it a data set .py. Hit enter, and now my program is my program saved as that as data set.py. I'll do a run module to run my program. And what's happening? It's taking a little while to run. And I got an error. Subprocessor connection. So it doesn't like something. All right, import pandas. I got pandas. I run module. If we try again. Taking a while to run. So when I run my program, if you look to the right of my screen, you can see in the Python shell, what it does is display the data for me. It gives the first column is a 012, which is the record number. And then on top you have the column names, chars, and passings. And then under chars, you have the three types of chars, BMW, Volvo, Ford. And under passings, you have 3, 7, and 2. All right. So that's a simple example of what Pandas can do. It can organize your data for you and make it so you can actually analyze the data and take a look at it. Now, in using Pandas, quite often it's referenced as when you import it, you want to give it an alias name, and it's usually given the alias name of PD. An alias name is just a nickname or a shortened name, so it makes it easier for you to type in whenever you're referencing the Pandas library. So what we're going to do is, in our program, I'll put import pandas space as space PD. So pandas, the Panda library will be referenced. I'll import it into my program, and it will be referenced as PD from now on. So what I would want to do is down here, I'd want to change the reference to the Pandas library. Instead of the full name PD or Pandas, I'll just use PD. All right. So if I run it again, so click on in the toolbar, click on Run. run module, and then click OK for the file to be saved. And if you look in the Python shell, it was running and it displays the same information. All right. All we're using is an alias name for the Pandas library. Okay. If you want to check the version of the Pandas library that you're using, okay. Wipe this stuff out. And so you have import pandas as PD, and then I'll do a print. A Python print, which is print, open parenthesis, I'll do the Python or the pandas library PD, dot, and then you do underscore, version, underscore, and then a closing parenthesis. All right, so here I'll run it, run module, click OK to save, and let's see on the Python shell what happens. And it returns, if you look down here, I'll highlight it, 1.0.3. That is my version of the Pandas library on my machine. After the version number in the Python shell, it returns the prompt of 3 greater than signs. All right, so next, let's get into series. All right, a Panda series is like a column in a table. If you've done any database work, which you really need to have a little bit familiarity with relational databases and maybe some SQL, structured query language that allows you to query and manipulate the data within a database. A Pandas series is like a column in a table, right? Inside database tables are columns and rows. So it's a series is a one-dimensional array holding data of any type, right? So let's get rid of our print here. And what we'll do is we'll do A equals, and then we'll do, so I'm going to create a list or array, 1, 7, 2, and I'll do a closing bracket, hit enter. I'll create a variable called myvar equals PD, which is our Pandas library alias name, dot series, which is the Panda libraries method, and inside parentheses, I'll have A, which is the variable that's the list name. All right, so, and then I'm going to want to print myvar, closing parenthesis, and here I'll do run module, click OK to save it. And in Python shell, returning a name, it returned an error. Pring is not defined, and I spelled print wrong, so it's just a typo. I'll delete the G, add the T, so now I have print spelled correctly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe out Python shell, start a fresh session. So I'll click run. In my idle session, I'll click run module, OK. And let's see what happens. Okay, my Python shell is running. And it returns. I'll clean this up a little bit. it returns a column 0, 1, 2, and then a column with the series numbers 1, 7, and 2. D type is int 64, so it's integers. So it's returning the D type is the data type, and it's returning what type it is, which is an integer, which is a whole number. So that's a series. That's it. Yeah, okay. So that's a series that we created from a list. So in Python, here's our list, right? We gave it a name of A equals, and then curly brackets, and then we have each item within the list separated by a comma and a closing square bracket. So we created this list here. Now, if nothing's specified, the values are labeled with their index number, all right? So these are the index numbers over here. If you look in the Python shell, it returned the index number and then the value, the first item's value in the list, which was 1. And then the next, and remember, indexes and lists in Python start with 0 and then move on. They don't start with the number 1, they start with 0. And that's what was displayed when we ran the Panda series for the list that we have. So, so if I wanted to return only the first value of the series, I would change my print statement. So instead of printing the whole list, the whole series, I would do print my var, and then I would have the square bracket, and say I wanted to print the first item in the list. Well, that has an index of 0. So I put a 0 and then square bracket, and if I run this, a module, okay. Now it should only return 0 and 1, or it just returned 1. It didn't return the index number because I'm specifically telling it to return the index of 0. So if you look at the right in my Python shell session, it returned the number 1, which is the first item, the value of the first item in our list. All right, so so using the index, we can actually give we can put labels on the index number. So what we're going to do is we're going to print so we have our PD series, and so we're going to print the list that's called A, and a comma, and then if I want to rename, I want to label the indexes, right? Equals index equals, and then we'll do a square bracket, and we'll do I'm going to call the first one first, second, third, and then a square bracket to close it out, and then it's closing parenthesis, all right? And then what I want to do, instead of just printing the first value of the first item, we're going to just get rid of this, and we're going to print the whole list again. But this time, instead of the results showing the index of 0, 1, 2, it's going to show first, second, and third. All right, so this is a way to put labels on the indexes, which makes your data returned more readable. So run a module and click OK. And there you go. So if you look at my Python shell off to the right, it returned this right here. It returned first with a value of 1, second with the value of 7, third with the value of 2, and D type is still integer 64. All right, so these are the things you can do with series. All right, so you can use a key value object like a dictionary when creating a series. So let's do that. All right, so instead of using a list like we did here, we're going to use a dictionary. So Python dictionary. So we give it a name, calories equals, and then the dictionary has a curly bracket, and we're going to do key value pairs. So day 1 colon, day 1 double quote colon space 350, right, comma, oops, sorry, this, and I'll do a comma, and then I'll put it down here, double quote, day 2, colon, 560, comma, enter, double quote. This is creating our dictionary called calories. And we'll just have a day 3, colon, not L, colon. And this is going to be 800. And then I'm going to close that out. To enter. And I'm going to close this out with a closing curly bracket. All right, so I have my dictionary called calories. And these are key value pairs, right? The key in our dictionary is day 1 with a value of 350, day 2 with a value of 560, key day 3 with a value of 800. All right, so that's our dictionary. And then I'm gonna have my var variable name equals PD is our library for alias name for the Pandas library, and I'll have my series method, and then in parentheses this is going to be, I'm not going to have a label under indexes, so all I'm going to do is have the series be calories, and I'm going to print my var, the value of my var. All right, so let's run this. Run module, click OK, and let's see what comes up. So if you look off to the right, in the bottom of my Python shell session, it returns day 1, 350, day 2, 560, day 3, 800. All right, so it returned the key and the values. All right. Next. All right, so using our dictionary called calories, what if I only wanted to have the first and third day? Well, so for the variable myvar, I would call the pandas library pd dot, and then the series method, and then in parentheses, you have the dictionary name, which is calories, comma, and then you would do index equals, and then I'm going to name the keys that I want. So I want day 1, comma, oops, I have to surround the key with double quotes, comma, day 3. So I don't want to see day 2 in my data that's returned. And you have to wrap that in a square bracket. And I'm supposed to put an opening square bracket right here. All right, so I do day 1 key and day 3 key, square bracket, and then at the very end here, after the closing square bracket, I need a closing parenthesis. Oops, already had one there, so I'll delete it. And then I'm going to do a print of my bar. Oops. All right. So let's do a run, a module, click OK. And there it is. All right. So look at the bottom, off to the right, I have my Python shell session. Look at the bottom. It printed day 1, prints out the key day 1 with the value of 350, and day 3 with the value of 800. So it doesn't print out day 2 because I didn't tell it to. All right. So that's using dictionaries. And then, so data sets in Pandas are usually multi-dimensional tables called data frames. All right. So to create a data frame, let's go back to let's use let's wipe this out. Wipe this line out. Okay, so to do multi-dimensional arrays, to do analysis on them, sort of like the first exercise we did when I started the class. So I'm going to have a variable named data. So data equals, and here I'm going to have a, let's see, opening curly brackets, hit enter a couple times, and do it closing curly bracket. All right, and then inside, under data, we want to indent. All right, I'm going to call this calories, colon, and then I'll have my values, right? So I'll do 300, comma, 560, comma, 800, square bracket, comma, and now I want my other array. And this is going to be duration, colon, and the duration, how many days. And so I'll do a square bracket, so it's 20. I'll say 20, 60, square bracket, and then here you can get rid of the space. All right, so I have 2 arrays. So just like a multi-dimensional table, our variable named data has the array calories and the array duration. And what I want to do is I'll create my variable marvar equals PD, reference the alias name for the Pandas library, and then we're going to say data frame. And then in parentheses, I'm going to name the multi-dimensional array. And then I'm going to print out my var. All right, I'm going to get rid of my Python shell session. It's getting a little crowded. So hit run module. I'll bring up a Python shell. And there you go. So my multi-dimensional array is now being displayed correctly. It gets the index number 012, and then the column calories, and it displays the values 300, 560, 800, and then duration with the values 20, 40, 60. So Pandas is a library in Python that just allows you to manipulate the data so visually you can interpret it and figure out a whole bunch of information from it. All right, so I'm going to move this over. All right, okay, so next up, let's go a little deeper into data frames. All right, so data frame is a two-dimensional data structure, like a two-dimensional array or a table with rows and columns, right? So in databases, you have rows and columns, so it's two-dimensional, the information. So as you can see from the data frame that we just created off in my Python shell to the right, you can see it's like a table, right? It's got columns. The columns are calories and duration, and the rows are 0, 1, 2. Right. So you can use in Pandas, you can use the LOC attribute to return one or more specified rows. So if I want to return, all right, so to say I wanted to, instead of printing my var, right, so I want to do that LOC, and then we'll do square bracket. I want to print out the zero index or first item, first row in the array. All right, so let's do up in the toolbar, do run module. Click OK to save it. And in my Python shell, it's running. And that's what it does. All right. So using the attribute LOC for location, you can specify the index of the row that you want. And what it returns is the calories of 300, which is, so I'm specifying this index number of 0, which is the first item in our array, the first row. And it returns calories in value of 300 and duration in value of 20. All right. So keep in mind the LOC loc attribute. And if I wanted to return, say I wanted to, by using the LOC attribute, say I wanted to return, instead of the 0 index, I'm going to change my program. I want to return the first and second row. So what I would do is I would say 1, comma 2. 1, comma 2 inside the square brackets. And what I need though is a double square bracket and a double square bracket at the end after the 2. And that will print multiple rows. So let's see what happens. So I do run the module. Okay. And look off to the right in my Python shell. And that's what it does. It prints the first index, the second row, which has an index of 1 with values 5, 60, and 40, which is correct. And the third row, which has an index of 2 and values of 860. All right, so you can see how Pandas can really be helpful with analyzing data. All right, so let's try something else. Named indexes. All right, so what if we want to name the index instead of displaying the index number? Sort of just like labels that we did earlier. All right, except this time we're doing it in a data frame. So if we want to display everything, what we can do is we'll say index. Oh, we have to change this. We have our we have to do it up here. So we have our data, comma, index, equal, and say, yeah. Oops. Day 2, day 3. Right. Day 1, day 2, day 3. And these are all supposed to be surrounded with a square bracket. So I got a square bracket here and square bracket there. And then we're going to print out my var. We're not going to be using the LLC locator attribute. So print my var, and that should replace the index number with day 1, day 2, day 3. So run module. Look to the Python shell. There it is. At the bottom of my Python shell, I get day 1, day 2, day 3 with corresponding values for each. All right, so now I can locate the named indexes that we just created, right? So instead of printing my var, I'm going to print my var dot LOC, and then I'll do a square bracket, and I just want to print out day 3. I want to find the location of day 3. All right. So this will return for day 3. It'll return the calorie value and the duration value. So I'll do run module. And if you look to the right, there it is. It displays calories 800, duration 60 for day 3. All right. All right. So next, if your data sets are stored in a file, which quite often they're going to be, there's a way you can load them into a data frame. And here's where I'm going to switch over from using idle in the Python shell. I'm going to switch over to using an editor in W3 Tools. So, not sure if you can see that. So if you want to follow along, you can go to W3 Tools, and if you go to this website, you'll be able to use their editor. Oops. Sorry. Which I have up and running. So you want to go into this website, and then we're going to try and use Pandas to download a CSV file into a data frame. All right, so here, all right, I'm going to go into here. Okay, so we're going to this one. All right. Here, run it. All right, so you can clear the screen when you get into the W3 Tools editor. All right. And now let's so our program has import pandas as PD. So we give an alias name of PD. So we have the pandas library imported. And then let's create a variable named df for data frame. So equal pd.read underscore CSV parentheses. Then we'll do data CSV and parentheses. All right, so this data.csv file is already will be found using the W3 Tools editor because it's loaded on their server. All right, so print, and we're going to print out our variable, the value of our variable, df for data frame. All right, and let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of data there is. There's an error. Local library packages. All right, let me just give it a try. So let's see. When I ran my program, it read the data.csv file. Now, CSV files, they contain plain text, and it's a well-known format that can be read by everyone, including pandas. And so in this file, when I run my program, so if you look to the right of my screen, you can see the results creating a data frame using the Python pandas and reading the file data.csv. And this is the information that it has in it. It's got the index number first, and then it has the columns duration, pulse, max pulse, and calories. All right, so this is 169 rows of data with 4 columns. So it's a little bit. And one thing I want to do is I want to, when I do the print, I'm printing out the value that's in my variable df. So if I do df.to underscore string, parentheses, and run it, now the information will be displayed a little bit different. And there you go. So here it displays all 169 columns of the information. Nice and neat. And that's taking it from a comma-separated CSV file, which is pretty awesome. All right. One of the most, so in viewing the data, one of the most used method for getting a quick overview of the data frame is called the head method. Right? The head method returns the headers and a specified number of rows starting from the top. So say we want to get a quick overview, right? So we can leave. So the data we're working with is in this this data.csv file. All right. So when we do a print, instead of doing toString, we're going to use the method head. So head, and then the argument for the head method is going to be, say we only want to do 20. Right. This should list only the first 20 rows. So, all right, let's take a look. I scroll down. Yep. And the reason why the index number, the last row has a number of 19 is because, remember, we start the index at 0. So 0 through 19 is 20 rows. All right. So so the head method returns the headers and a specified number of rows, and it starts from the top. So now, if I didn't specify the number 20, that I wanted 20 rows to be returned, if you use the head method and you don't specify anything, it'll return the top 5 rows. If I run it without anything specified as an argument for the head method, it's going to return the top 5 rows, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now how about, there's also a method called tail for viewing the last rows of the data frame. All right, so instead of using our head, let's use our tail. All right, and if I don't specify a number, if I don't specify an argument for the tail method, it'll print the last 5 rows. So I run my program. And there you go. There's the last 5. And there's also a method called info. So if I use info instead of tail, what info does is it gives you more information about the data set that you're taking a look at. In this case, their data set is data.csv. So if I run it, let's see what kind of information it's going to return about this this data file. All right, so it says range index is 169 entries, 0. The indexes are 0 to 168. The columns, there are total of 4 columns, right? The index number, the column. Then we have duration, pulse, max pulse, and calories. All right, so those are the 4 columns: duration, pulse, max pulse, and calories. And the types that can go in are non-null. You can't have null values. The data types are int for duration, pulse, and max pulse, but for calories, it's float. And the memory storage is 5.4 kilobytes. So that's what you get when you use the method info. All right. No values. All right. So one last thing with analyzing your data using these different methods is the info will tell us how many non-null values there are present in each column. So, if you look at the info results, you can see, so the first column, duration, has 169 non-null records. So there are no nulls, no records under the duration column. And the same is true under the pulse column and the max pulse column and the calories column. The calories column does have, it has 164 non-null records, which means that since there are a total of 169 records, that there must be 5 records that are null under the calories column. So it's just helping you to be able to determine what records have non-nulls and to be able to clean up the data eventually. All right, so that is, let me just see. So the last subject we're going to talk about tonight is, we already went over how to read a CSV file, and for even bigger data sets, most people use JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. And so JSON is data in plain text, but it has the format of an object. And so what we're going to do in our program, if you look to the left, we've got import pandas as PD, and then we're going to do a data frame. We'll create a variable named df for data frame equals PD dot, and I'm going to read underscore JSON, and then in parentheses there's a JSON file that I have. So data.json wrapped in single quotes, close it with a parenthesis, hit enter, and then we'll do print. Python print is print, parenthesis, and I'm going to print the value of whatever in our variable df. And I'll run this. And there's our data. But it's pulling it from a JSON file instead of a CSV file. All right. So Pandas easily uses both types of files to be able to sort, organize, and present data that is a whole lot more readable and understandable, and it's manipulated the way you want to see it to be able to interpret it. So one final thing, when you want to see all the data, if you look to the right, you can see that it lists the first 5 and the last 5 rows with dots in between. So it's not listing all 169 rows. So if you want to see all the data, you just have to use the method. In my print, I'm going to have the variable name df, and then I'll do dot, and then two. That's what toString does. So to underscore string, parenthesis, parenthesis. So no arguments are being passed to the to underscore string method. And when I run this using toString, it will display all the records, the 169 records that is in my data.json file. And there you go. If you look to the right, you can see it starts with an index of 0 and ends with an index of 168, showing all the data with all the 4 columns that it's listing out. So so that's it for pandas. There is more to pandas that I wasn't able to cover tonight. We wanted additional information about using the Pandas library in Python. It includes cleaning the data and making correlations and being able to plot it. So it's all part of the field of data science and data analytics that is becoming so incredibly popular, and it's really, I can't imagine it's ever gonna stop growing the way we use data to figure out, create algorithms for people's personal information. So thank you very much for joining me. Once again, my name is Scott Bartow. This has been Learning to Analyze Data using Python Pandas, and it has been offered to you by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. Thanks very much.